Okay, so I want to talk about something that I see all the time. People tell me that they want to be writers. Halana, I want to be like you and be able to travel around the world. I just want a life in general that feels more free than what I currently live. But what I also find is that their actions don't really support the desires that they have, that they express to me. And what they are doing, in fact, is they are waiting to be chosen. So that's what we're going to talk about today. So if you're new here, my name's Halana Black. I've been traveling around the world as a writer since 2018. Right now, I'm ready to trade in my beach life in Playa del Carmen, Mexico, to build the creative home and retreat space of my dreams in San Miguel de Allende. And so I want to be able to document part of this process here on YouTube and invite you in on the process. So today we're talking about waiting to be chosen. Waiting to be chosen um, for writers often looks like never pitching ideas to magazines, to companies you want to be able to work with, never sharing the work that you create on your own with, people who you would like to be your readers, never submitting your work to spaces where you feel like your work um, would add value. If, if you're a traveler, it might look like, um, being stuck on, where it is that you want to go. You can't decide where you want to go, and so you never go anywhere. Um, it might look like um, you want to be able to have a different life, but you organize everything around your job. You organize everything what your job allows. You put your job first instead of creating a life where you put your desires first, and then whatever fits around your desires, you create around that. That was something I really needed to learn how to be able to do, and I learned how to do that over time. That didn't come naturally to me. And so what you wind up doing is you live a life where you're waiting for permission, you're waiting for validation, or you're just sort of waiting on the right time. And of course the right time never really comes. Um, but what I had to learn is that no one is coming to choose you, especially not in creative work. As a writer, no one comes seeking me um, for my work. Some of the people that I look up to as writers, uh, they have gotten to a point in their careers um, where people come looking for them, but that's only after decades, literal decades, multiple decades of putting in the work, of choosing yourself, of choosing your ideas, of deciding that this is the thing that you want and putting the time and the energy in. Um, that could be in your work as a writer, any sort of general creative work. It could be your life as an entrepreneur. All of these paths reward taking initiative and not necessarily talent and potential. I need you to hear this. I need you to hear this. I need you to hear that in order for you to be able to live the creative life that you want to be able to live, you have to go out and take it. And that any of these paths, whether you want to be a writer, a creative person, an entrepreneur, all of these paths reward your own personal initiative and not necessarily your talent and potential. If you've got talent and potential, great, but it doesn't mean anything unless you actually act on it. And we see it every day. We see all kinds of folk who appear to not have much, uh, who may you may deem as less intelligent, who have less experience, who are less polished get ahead all the time. But when you sit and you talk to them and you find out they've been doing the work behind the scenes for a very long time, and you've been sitting in the background waiting to be chosen. So, a few lessons that I have learned um, from being a writer and being a writer slash entrepreneur. The big one is if I don't pitch my ideas, my work, my services, then I never get the life that I want. Um, I learned really early in my probably my first year of being a full-time writer. I actually failed miserably in my first year of writing because I didn't know how to pitch my ideas. I didn't know how to be able to show up to a company and say, "Hey, I have a service that I would like to you for you to be able um, to consider hiring because I have something that will benefit you. You don't have time to be able to write these blog posts. I have time. I love writing blog posts, and I would love to be able to write them for you on your behalf." Um, and what I actually learned during that first year was that because I didn't do that as much as I should have, of course, you fall back on opportunities and you have less space for you to be able to create the income that you need. And so I didn't make a lot of money in my first year. And after my first year in business, I wound up having to take a full-time job opportunity that I took for a year. And then I worked with a coach who was able to help me figure out, much more of a strategic plan on trying to find um, clients that would be able to pay me the money that I needed in order to be able to afford the type of life that I have now. Um, but if I didn't do that, I wouldn't be able to move forward. What I was doing in the very beginning of being an entrepreneur was I was taking sort of the job seeker approach to my business, which is detrimental, absolutely detrimental. What you do, and this is not a conversation about, whether or not people who are entrepreneurs are better than people who have jobs. This is not that. But if you decide that you want to be an entrepreneur and the um, you take a job seeker's attitude towards being an entrepreneur, what happens is you just sort of wait for the opportunity to be announced. You wait to find the job announcement wherever you find your job announcements, whether it's on Indeed or any of the other websites that are out there. And if you don't see it, then you will assume that those opportunities don't exist. So you just choose from the limited amount of opportunities that you are able to find. What an entrepreneur does is they decide, okay, well, this is the type of life that I want to be able to have. Um, for me, that looked like being able to have space to be able to travel in the way that I want to. I don't want to have to check into a cubicle. I don't like cubicles. I don't want to have to work during certain times of the day. I um, I want to be able to choose the people and the projects that I work on. I don't want to be forced to work with anybody. I want to be able to work from the opposite side of the planet if that's how I choose to be able to work for a certain part of the year. Um, and then from that vision of how it is that I saw my life, I was able to say, all right, well, what is the life? What are the careers that I could choose or the types of businesses that I could choose that would allow me to live that sort of a life? And so I've always loved writing and being a writer. And I've always said, wow, if I could just If I can just spend my life, more of my life writing than doing all this other stuff that I was doing. Things like teaching, although I enjoy teaching, I don't necessarily need to be teaching all day. Like I don't like being a full-time teacher was never my thing. And for a minute, I was a full-time teacher. I spent probably 75% of my day teaching, and that was just a lot. Teaching adults. And at some points, I was teaching young people as well. I did not like that as much, although I do like teaching. I like um, I like being able, particularly with adults, I like being able to see adults change their lives through making different decisions about what's important to them and being able to help them align their thoughts with the lives that they want to do, sort of like what I'm doing with this video now. And so I like that process. And so I wanted to, what I learned from that process of thinking entrepreneurially was to be able to think my way through deciding that I'm trying to catch my train of thought, trying to catch my train of thought again. But what I was saying was that the process of being able to find a job sort of felt backwards. It felt behind for me because when you're looking for when you're waiting for other people to be able to put the position out there in front of you, um, you're sort of waiting for the opportunity to show up in your lap. You're waiting for the right opportunity to show up in your lap. And then, of course, you'll go through the application process. And most of the time, it's going to be a no. Um, but especially now in a season like what's going on now, when so many people are out there um, working so hard to look for jobs. And it's just sort of depressing to just be out there and you're waiting for the perfect opportunity that at some point people get so disillusioned by the process of looking for a job that they're just like, listen, I'll just take whatever. I don't even care. I'll just take whatever. And listen, I get that people need to do what they need to do with their lives to be able to make ends meet. This is I'm not judging people at all. Um, but for people who think entrepreneurially, part of what helps to keep you moving forward is that vision that you have of what it is that you want your life to be. And you're willing to do whatever you need to do to be able to get it. And so it brings out the creative person in you. I promise you. It brings out the creative person, the creator in you. Um, and so I look at the process of pitching, particularly as I'm doing right now, and the process that I teach, and teaching people how to be able to pitch magazines, is that I get to come up with stories that I find interesting. And I have to match those stories to the magazines and the outlets and the editors who would be interested in that particular story, which is it has a process. There's a process to being able to do this. Um, it takes some time to be able to get used to being able to do that. And um, and so that process of pitching is really sort of a really great metaphor for at least the way that I and many of my entrepreneur friends, the way that we look at life in general. That I really enjoy. That pitching is really about it's a self-responsibility to be able to take care of yourself, not just in your business, but in your whole life. And to be able to come up with stories where you say that I believe in this idea enough to be able to push it forward to somebody. That's um, such a brave decision to be able to make, to be able to take your work and say, I have this idea, take a look at it and tell me what you think. And what you're doing is you're pitching your ideas to people who are actually looking for your idea. They want you to have good ideas, right? They're not, these are not people who are sitting, on pedestals somewhere and saying that we only speak to a certain type of a person. They just want people with good ideas. And so being a writer and being an entrepreneur, um, has really helped to shape my ability to put myself forward, to have a much more um, sovereign outlook, a more sovereign view on how it is that I organize my life, how I see it. I'm much more focused on making my life what it is that I want to be, as opposed to taking the back seat and just saying, I'll just, I'll organize my life around what my boss says I'm allowed to live. And for me, that's not good enough. And if that is what you want to do, you're probably not watching this video anyway. Um, where else did I want to go? So choosing yourself, what does that look like? Being a woman who's in charge of her own destiny requires a vision. We talked a little bit about that. It requires courage and it requires movement. You've got to move behind your vision and being courageous. I meet people who tell me, "Oh, Alana, your life is so interesting. I'm living through you. Tell me where you've been." And I'm gonna keep it all the way real with you. That is so that nothing pisses me off more than people who are saying that they are living through me. I don't need you to live through me. I want you to, maybe you look at me and be inspired by me and you create your own thing based on your inspiration. But to sit back and say that you are living through someone else is such a disrespect. It's such a disrespect of the short time that we have here on this planet. When you start living the life that you know that you are supposed to have, when you start aligning yourself with the life that you know you're supposed to have, you get really, what's the word? You get really protective of your time. You get really protective of your energy. And you get really protective of how it is that you spend your time with other people. And to waste a minute of your time, of your life, living through someone else, I mean, that should be a sin, really. I just don't understand. What in your life do you hate so much that you feel like the only way for you to experience what it is that you like to experience is for you to live through others? Now, I'm not saying you can't sit and be inspired by others, because when I decide that I want to do something, one of the things that I do is I find other people who are doing it, right? And so there was a point when I was, and still am, fascinated by all things food. And in particularly in the time span that I'm thinking about, I was very much into learning. I had an issue with fibroids, uterine fibroids, and so I needed to know how to be able to, how I was learning how food was contributing to my health, to my uterine fibroids. And so I was learning about all these different ways that people were cooking, and I would be practicing at home. And so I would, would find creators who were doing raw food, vegan food, um, healthy traditional meals that included meat. I learned all sorts of things. I learned all sorts of everybody, different ways that different cultures, because I love, looking at it through a cultural lens, how different cultures look at um, healing themselves through traditional foods. Um, and so it wasn't, so I would find magazines, websites, blogs, videos on YouTube, anything that I could find. But it wasn't that I was looking at these people and just saying, wow, look at that. Look at what these people are doing. This is really interesting. I would take what I was learning and actually practice in my kitchen, so much to the point that people started coming to me and asking me questions. Even though I had a regular job, I had more than a regular job. I had two jobs at one point, two, even three jobs, really. And plus I was going to school. But I was so excited about what I was learning that people were coming to me to ask me questions about the thing that I was learning about food. And then people would come and ask me to cook for them. Um, they would ask me to teach, a short class. And so I started to do that for a while, so much to the point where I was hired as a consultant to teach children in an after-school program. Healthy cooking classes. I also taught healthy cooking classes at Whole Foods in New York City. I've written cookbooks, but this only comes because I was inspired by people. And if I had to just sat back and just said, wow, this is really cool, while I was healing myself at the same time. So you can have the vision for what it is that you want. You can have the courage for what it is that you want to be able to create, but it's got to be followed by movement. You can't just sit back and say, you can't just sit back and say, "Oh, I'm just going to live through these people." Nothing in your life is going to get better by living through other people, and you certainly don't wait for approval. You've got to go out and find people who are collaborators. You've got to work with people if you're in the writing space. You look at editors, you look at people who are potential clients, potential partners. These are all people who are collaborating on your vision for you to get up and live the life that you want to be able to have. Um, so why do so many creative women feel stuck? And I talked a little bit about this. We talked about your salary, the way a lot of us look at the money that we want to make, myself included. I'm still I'm still learning this. We look at what other people are doing or what you're allowed to have based on um, based on what you might find on the internet, based on what people in your geographical location might be earning. Um, and so you confine your salary based on what other people are doing instead of deciding, hey, you know what, this is how much I need for the life that I want to be able to live. And I'm going to find a way to be able to create that life that I want. Um, and so you build your life around, an arbitrary salary, uh, particular job constraints that can include, the time that you need to be at work. You know that you're not a morning person, but you're at your job at 8 o'clock in the morning, which means that you probably have to get up at 5, 6 o'clock in the morning. For myself, I probably like to start my work like 10 to 11 o'clock in the morning. Because that's how I feel best being able to work. Sometimes I work late, like right now, it's later in the evening, later at night, and I'm doing this video. because I have the energy to be able to do it. Um, if you had asked me to do this video earlier, I would not have been able to have done it because my mind was elsewhere. And so I get to work around when I have the energy to be able to do things. Um, some people wait for employer permission. I used to find this was really important with training at the job. If there was something that you needed to learn at the job, a lot of people like to sit and wait for your employer to pay for the thing or for you to learn about the thing. But there are many things that you could learn on your own before your employer um, would actually step up and say, hey, we're willing to pay for this for you. There's, classes that you can take on your own. There's books that you can read. There's so many ways for you to be exposed to other things so that you can start to sort of create an opportunity for yourself um, in ways that you might not even see. And that's how it is that I even got into writing, was because I would sit and write about my thoughts about working in adult education. I had a small blog in the early 2000s where I talked about my experience working in adult education. And it got recognized by certain people in the Washington, D.C. adult ed community. And I was invited to speak, to be able to teach certain classes. It got me opportunities to work on workforce development projects in the city. And these were all paid opportunities. Had I not taken the initiative to sit and write about what it is that I was thinking, what I was learning about, I wouldn't have gotten those opportunities because no one would have ever known. And because I'm more of an introvert, I'm not the one who, hangs out at, I'm not the one who generally hangs out at, the networking spots or hanging out at the happy hour. That's not really my thing. And so writing has always been my way of getting noticed. It's my way of learning, of sort of thinking out loud about what it is that I'm thinking about. But also it's um, my way of being able to get recognized. Just put it out there and see who responds, which takes some getting used to, especially in the very beginning. But now I'm just like, write the thing and put it out. I don't even care. And so now these days, I'm learning how to be a better speaker. And so I make these YouTube videos. And so I'll have writing and speaking, those two go together. And so I make these YouTube videos and I just put it out there into the universe with the belief that some way, somehow, all of this is going to compound and benefit me in some way, shape, or form in a way that I don't even see right now. I don't even know what the benefit. I don't have any set thoughts for what it is or expectations is what I'm trying to say. I don't have any expectations for what this is going to turn into. I'm just dedicated to doing the videos and getting better at speaking with you over video. Um, and we'll see what comes of it. And so a lot of creative people know that they are living a life they don't actually want. And so over time, there's a lot of tension that builds, but they are too afraid to be able to take any action. And that's a problem. You have to take action. Like I was just explaining, you have to take action behind what it is that you're doing. And so starting with pitching magazines can be a really powerful start. Pitching magazines has taught me, personally, it's taught me how to articulate my ideas in writing, how to stand behind a personal vision. It's taught me how to handle rejection, My God, today, my God, today, because a lot of us, a lot of people are just are waiting for their dreams to happen for them instead of working for the dream because they are afraid that they are going to be rejected. And that's just not a way to be able to live. And so as a writer, I'll tell you, I get rejected every single day, multiple times a day, sometimes 10, 20 times a day. And that's just the way it works. So you've got to get really, really comfortable with knowing that you're going to be rejected a lot. And that's okay. That's the way life works. It's okay to be rejected. And you have to be able to get rejected, understand the rejection, or sometimes it's not even a rejection. It's not even an acknowledgement that you even showed up. How about that? That's different from rejection. Sometimes you send emails out, and I actually have a system on my email that tells, it'll show me when the person you sent it to actually opened it up. And sometimes, a lot of times, they don't even respond at all, which is not a rejection of me as a human being. It's not even a rejection of my idea. It's just we it doesn't work for what it is that we're doing right now, and that's fine. You got to learn how to be able to take that, and maybe that idea might belong someplace else in a different iteration. And that's just the way you have to think in order for you to be able to move forward as a writer. And so that's a powerful lesson that I've learned through writing, through pitching magazines in particular. Um, so when you're pitching magazines, you get to be able to choose the publications that you want to be able to write for. You get to decide who is worthy of carrying your ideas. And that is such a bold way to live. You don't have to put your ideas where you don't feel that they belong, which is very different from when you're working, at a job. How many times are you at your job and you have to be involved in projects that you would rather not be? That you have to sit in meetings with people that you would not rather not have to sit in meetings with, that you have to be involved in certain messaging that you would rather not have any part of if it were up to you, but you're just doing it because it's part of the job. When you write for magazines, when you learn the skill of writing for magazines, you are actually learning how to be able to create your own sort of ecosystem for where it is that you would like for your stories, your ideas to be able to be where you want your stories and your ideas to live. And so once you start learning how to pitch magazines, um, you're learning how to pitch yourself for opportunities. You learn how to ask for what it is that you want, and you start to design your life more intentionally. And when you do all those things, you can start to feel your confidence sort of shift. When you're first starting to pitch, it's sort of like, sort of like a newborn, a baby fawn, a baby deer. You're trying to walk and your little legs are wobbling. And so you're just sort of unsure of trying to, learn how to be able to walk and be able to know whether or not this is a good idea or a bad idea. But if you keep practicing, if you know some of the basics of what it is that makes a really great, strong pitch, um, you start to learn what it is that the particular magazine that you really love, what is it that you love about it that makes it such a great place for you to be able to pitch, and how do you fit? How does your vision fit into what it is that they're doing? Once you start to pick up on those things, you'll start to feel your confidence come out, and your options for where it is that you would like to be able to put your voice actually starts to expand, and your life will start to unfold in ways that you couldn't even predict. for a lot of well, you'll start to when you start to get yeses from some of the places that you've always may have read. Like, for example, I get to write for places like Essence. And if you're a Black woman, you understand how the role that Essence magazine has played for many of us over multiple generations, right? We all love Essence magazine and how they've shown Black women with dignity, um, Black women in various different shades and colors that were beautiful, different hair textures that were beautiful. And you don't necessarily see that in other places, in other magazines, in other so-called beauty magazines. And so to be able to share stories that um, center Black women as travelers, as women, in particular, my stories, I want to be able to talk about women, Black women in midlife who are traveling the world and what it is that we do and how it is that traveling has affected us um, in ways that living a conventional life has not. That's the story that I want to be responsible for crafting and sharing with the world. Um, that's that has given me a lot of confidence because it has helped me to be able to find part of my purpose. I'm a person who believes that we have more than one purpose at different parts of our lives. And at least in this portion of my life, as a 48-year-old Black woman, I currently live in Mexico, but I've lived in a number of other countries before I've gotten to Mexico. I think that this story at this particular time in 2026, this story of Black people who have um, chosen intentionally to leave the United States for lives elsewhere. That's something that needs to be documented. And I'm part of that process of documenting us in this season of life. And I'm excited about that. And so I didn't necessarily start when I left the United States in 2018. I didn't necessarily think of it that way. I was just out. I left the States to be able to take care of myself, to be able to feel better in my body. I felt very sick. I always tell the story. Um, my mother passed away 20 years ago, February 6th, 20 years ago. Um, she passed away of breast cancer. And fast forward, she passed away at 49 years old. So fast forward to my early 40s, and I was starting to feel sick because I had already said I had fibroids and I had anxiety and I had all sorts of other things that I felt like were going wrong with me. And I just needed to be able to get away, to be able to focus on myself. And so I went to Thailand, and that was where part of my healing process, um, my healing process and spiritual awakening process started. I wouldn't say started because it started way before that. But it went into let's just say it went into hyperdrive when I went to Thailand. Um, and so that was part of the benefit that I didn't see. I didn't see this writing about what it is that I went through. I didn't leave with the purpose of thinking that I would write about it later on. I just wanted to live, to be quite honest. And so when you take action on wherever it is that you are in the present moment, you have absolutely no idea where it's going to be able to take you in your future. So that was a lot. I know it was a lot. I always start these videos thinking that it's going to be, oh, just 10, 15 minutes, and then it's a little longer than that. So my point of today's video, stop waiting to be chosen. I need you to start thinking about actions. I want you to be able to think about how it is that you are choosing yourself or how it is that you're not choosing yourself. I want you to be able to practice putting your ideas into the world. Um, and pitching magazines is actually part of that. That's why actually teach a class on pitching magazines, putting your ideas into the world. If you say that you want to be a writer, this is a great way for you to start being a writer. You can do this with your full-time job. You can do it on the weekends. You can do it in the mornings, the evenings, your lunch breaks. This is something that you can do. You can learn how to do this and start to slowly shift the life that you have from where you are right now. If you don't like what you are doing, you can change it. Um, your life will change when you start moving. And so if you want to know, well, number one, if you want to know how to be able to get into my class, Pitching Magazines with Confidence, starts on February 22nd. We meet for 8 Sundays at 2 p.m. Eastern Time. Um, each meeting will be about an hour, hour and a half. This is a small group. This is not one of those, I'm just giving you some pre-made content and you just figure it out. I'm working with a small group of women because I want us to be able to understand this process. We are all working together, rooting for each other. We're reading each other's work. I, in particular, because it's my class and I'm leading it, I'll be reading the pictures that you want to be able to share with me and giving you advice on how to improve your pitches, to be able to improve your chances of getting your pitches accepted. Of course, I cannot guarantee. That all depends on your personal work ethic. But the more you do it, the more likely and easier it becomes for you to be able to get into magazines. Um, so if that is an opportunity that you are interested in, you can go to the description box, click on the link. And the course is called, it's a live 8-week group course, small group, called Pitching Magazines with Confidence. I also have, you can sign up for my, um, it's a freebie that I have. If you want to know what an actual magazine pitch looks like, I have something called 5 Successful Magazine Pitches. I give you my pitch as well as a link to the actual published article, so that you can see what the difference is between the pitch and the actual published article. And I want you to be able to see that this is possible. This is not, some complicated process. You do need to learn the strategy behind it, but this is not so complicated that you can't learn it. A lot of you have degrees and work experiences that are way more complicated than I have ever even done. You can pitch a magazine and get your stuff to get your ideas published. Um, what else? There was something else that I wanted to do. Oh, this is our choosing moment. Before we close, I want to be able to offer you what I am calling a choosing moment. It's a question that you can sit with, ponder, journal if you'd like to, or just simply hold on to for the rest of the week. So here's the question. I'm going to also put this in the um, in the description box. Where in my life am I waiting to be chosen instead of choosing myself? Where in my life am I waiting to be chosen instead of choosing myself? And here's a follow-up question. What is one small action I can take this week to change that? What is one small action I can take this week to change that? If you missed the question, I'm going to put that in the description box for you as well. My name's Halana Black. I will see you tomorrow for a new video. Have a great day.